The 2024 provincial budget was presented earlier today, and while the government is projecting a record high $7.9 billion deficit next fiscal year, the Minister of Finance emphasized the need to maintain spending.
Some look at the challenges ahead and say government should respond with deep cuts, leaving people to fend for themselves. This would only weaken the services we all rely on and drive up costs with added fees and fares. It would leave people at risk to those who take unfair advantage by putting profits ahead of people.
With an election scheduled for this October, this year's budget touched on many hard-hitting topics, including housing, healthcare, and climate action. Our Justin McElroy broke down the 5 key takeaways.
2024 BC provincial budget is out. Here are 5 things you need to know about it. Number 1, record high projected deficit by the provincial government, $7.9 billion for this upcoming fiscal year, up from a $5.9 billion deficit for the current one we're in. The province defending the approach, saying in a time of high inflation and global uncertainty, they need to continue maintaining spending on programs that British Columbians rely on. Number 2, a property flipping tax is going to be introduced in the province. If you sell a home within 2 years of purchasing it, you will now be subject to up to a 20% tax on all profits made from flipping that home. Number 3, in vitro fertilization. It's free in some provinces right now for 1 cycle. That's not the case in British Columbia. Until now, province saying that they will be creating a program for that in the next year will save some families that use that method $20,000 to $30,000 if they try to go that route. Number 4, there's a whole bunch of different tax credits being expanded in this year's budget. That includes a 25% increase to the Family Benefit Fund, a 10% increase to the Climate Action Rebate, and about $100 worth of rebates to the average BC hydro bill over the course of the year. And that leads to number 5, the lack of new programs in this year's budget compared to past ones. Instead, the province underlying how much British Columbians have saved from the different programs and tax credits they've put in place over the last 7 years that they've been in power. With an election coming up in October, they're focusing more on the overall impact of what they've done in the past 7 years as government, rather than anything specific in this year's budget, or more to the point, that isn't in it.
Our Meera Bains was also at the legislature earlier today. She joins us now with more on the reaction to the 2024 budget. Meera, lots of new spending. What has the reaction been from the official opposition?
This is really where the BC NDP government and the official opposition, BC United, massively differ. BC United leader Kevin Falcon, who used to be a finance minister, says he really takes issue with the way taxpayers' dollars are being spent.
We're getting the worst outcomes we've ever seen in healthcare, in public safety, in drug overdose death rates, in housing affordability, in every area that the provincial government's responsible for. We're seeing the worst results we've ever seen.
And there was other criticism as well. We spoke with the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives about the new flipping tax. Now, the way this tax is going to work is that within the first year of buying a home, you will be taxed 20% on the profit of a sale if you decide to sell it, and then that slides down to 0 by year 2. Now, the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives says that doesn't do anything for housing supply and generating housing supply. Take a listen.
Ultimately, I think it's a bit of a distraction. We do have a government here that's doing more in terms of housing policy than any other province in the country, but it's still not enough. We're not seeing non-market housing investment at the scale we need. We're seeing, big legislation in terms of zoning reform, which is moving in the right direction, absolutely, but that also needs to go more, and it needs to happen faster.
Now, one spending announcement getting a lot of reaction is the decision to offer a free round of IVF starting next year. What are you hearing when it comes to reaction to that, Meera?
Well, there are a lot of tears over this one. The BC government will be covering 1 cycle of IVF, and that includes treatment and medication. Now, these are very costly expenses, ranging from $15,000 to $20,000. The province will be catching up with at least 7 other provinces who have something like this in place. This goes into effect in April of 2025.
It's extremely costly. People are looking for all sorts of options. And as the population, the trends change, affordability, they're waiting longer as well. So we're seeing individuals choosing to become parents later. And so I think that this is another great opportunity for people to have options.
Details still have to be worked out, but Finance Minister Katrine Conroy did say that no one should be denied the opportunity to have a child based on how much money they make, who they love, and whether or not they have a partner.
Thank you, Meera. That's Meera Bains reporting from Victoria.